Hey everybody, and welcome to another Learn to Digitize video with OML Embroidery. I am Sue and I'm here to teach you embroidery. So today we're starting off the new classes of 2016 and we are going to do an in-depth look at a lot of different things. Today we're going to talk about fill stitch and everything you can do with the fill stitch. So first of all, we need to go to Studio. So right now I just opened the program and I'm in Manager, and this is how we get to Studio. Up here on the left, Launch Studio plugin. And Studio, if you don't have it, you should have it. Because that's where you can do all the digitizing. There's a lot of different things you can do in Manager and Editor, but it's not really digitizing. Actually, you can do a lot of things in Editor, but you're only manipulating already digitized designs. Now in Studio, if you don't know this, this is how you start off, and you can make some different changes. You can change the background, you can change all of the things. Make sure you are using the most up-to-date version of Embird. They put out a lot of little bug fixes and upgrades, and make sure you keep up on those. So this is what it looks like, and now we're going to talk about fill stitches. Now fill stitches are the basis for most embroidery. I think just about any embroidery design you look at, it's going to have fill stitches. So you really need to know what you can do with the fill stitches to start creating embroidery. Now we can get pretty fancy with the fill stitches, but we're going to start off slow and work ourselves up there. So over on the left, here is your little tool for the fill stitch. So we're going to click on that, and if you notice my mouse changes, the whole board changes, and you get this on the right hand side. You get all of this information here. And these are the different things we can do. So let's talk about a fill stitch. A fill stitch is meant to fill the area or a shape, and it's for larger areas and different shapes. So you're thinking medium to large shapes, and these are the things you can do over here on the left. We're gonna do these parts in a later video because that's getting a little more detailed. So for now, let's just ignore that. For here, you want to pick curved or straight. So I just leave it on curved because I always want the little dot so I can readjust things, and I'll show you that in a minute. So pull compensation 0.1, just leave that for now. If you feel you need to adjust your pull comp, you can do it after, but right now that's a standard thing. This is the standard normal density. Motif stitches, we're going to talk about that. Gradients, we're going to talk about that later. Here's your different fills that you have. So right now we are going to just do a basic fill, and either fill 1 or fill 2 will be fine, but we're going to switch it over to these ones so you can see exactly what they do. So let's start with straight up this one because I like it. Now, a fill stitch is by its nature a closed object. So what we're doing is creating an object, and an object it's all closed. Whoops, and because I messed around, I'm kind of off there a bit, but that's okay. So I just left clicked. Now look at this first point down. It has all these things. That's your start point. And we're going to click again. Click again. It's all left clicking, right? And then these ones here, so the squares are the straight lines and the circles are how you make curves. So all you have to do is grab and pull. Now I'm holding down my left mouse key and I'm dragging it, and when I let go, it's done. So that's why I said leave the curved line on. Now if you look here, I've left this open, so we want to close it. So all you have to do is place it on top there. And you can make whatever kind of design you want. I'm just playing. Part of the learning embroidery, get comfy in your software. So we're just going to play around. These are nodes, by the way, that I'm moving around. And if you notice, you can move the nodes in or out, but you can also move them up or down along the line that you're creating here. and it'll show you exactly what it's going to be. So if you want this to see how it changes the angle, and we can make this straight and curved, that almost looks like a hat or something, so maybe we'll just go with it. So you can move stuff around as long as it's closed. So let's go up here and let's generate the stitches. And see, there you go. That is, and you can move it around. You don't have to do anything else. You can, because we're in Studio, you can make it bigger or smaller. Of course, don't go too small. Now it looks like that because there is no stitches in it. So we need to generate. And there we go. And we can see through here the underline, underlay. We can see everything that's going on. Now over here on the right, this is how you can tell what stitches, because there's not going to be very many embroidery designs that you have going on that you just have, you know, one thing. It's possible, but I'm thinking when I digitize, I have a whole list down here on the right. So what they've done to make it easier is that they show you a little teeny weeny icon of what you just did, and it shows you what tool you used, what type of stitch that is. So you can just check a quick glance of what it is. Oh, that's a fill stitch. Okay, so now I know. And then the color. Now, up here are the colors. And if you want to change the colors, it's very easy to do. You click, left click, hold, and bring it down. And you see, did you see my icon changed? So that says, no, don't do it. Right here, it turns to a little piece of paper. That's when you let go. So let go, and there you go. Look, the whole design changed. Now I was saying don't make it too small, because let's not make it too small, because then you kind of lose your stitches. Again, it's not generated, so if you don't like to see the stitches, then you can do it that way. See how it's all changed? You can see that the underlay, there's only a little bit. Now if you look down, straight down from this design, you can see how big that is. That's only 0.27 of an inch. That's really small. That's really small. So you gotta know what size you're working with. And if you look here, you can see all the numbers changing. And if you look down, I'll put an arrow so you can see what I'm talking about. You can see the size of what you're doing. You don't have to worry about the zoom or anything like that, but you can see if I want this precisely 1 inch somewhere. Let's go move it carefully. So now that design is, look down at the bottom, 1 inch by 0.85 of an inch. Now don't get confused if it says stitches 0. That's only because we haven't generated the stitches. So we haven't told it that we want stitches. A lot of people find it a lot easier to work like this, just to not have the stitches showing. I'll remember, close it. So I prefer to have the stitches showing, and I'm going to show you why. If I have one here that is generated, and this one, there's no it's not generated, but it's a shape, so which is pretty cool. But you can use all these, so 3D is going to show you the actual stitches. Whereas if you haven't generated it, you just get an outline. Now you can change the background in different ways you want to see it. I don't find it necessary, but you can, and I can show you that later. So I prefer to generate the stitches so I can see what I'm doing. Now that's in 3D view, and you will find that that's very, very helpful when you're working along to keep, you can actually work in 3D view, but you can't see your background picture when you're doing it. So always check the 3D view. I find it very helpful. Say you had satin stitches and around the outside of this kind of half square that it is, and you made it smaller, you could check to see if your stitches are going to work out that way. So 3D view, very handy. That's just a different view, less shiny. This is with it all flat, so if you just want the shape filled in for that. I don't happen to use it a lot, but it may be handy. You can look at it in the actual size, which we discovered is very small. That's only 1 inch. And then different views on that. Stitch Simulator, we're going to check out after. Density map, awesome. It brings it back up. See, again, if you don't generate the stitches, you really don't get a use out of this view. So this is the one I generated, and green is good, yellow is okay, and red is bad. But if you have some red, like all lettering is going to have some red in it, so you don't have to worry about it. But if I had something in here and it was all red in the middle, I think you should check it out and maybe you messed around with density. So it is very handy for that, and you should always check your density map. And we can go to X-ray and we can see everything. Again, you just can't see it unless you generate the stitches. So it's very handy to do it. So I always generate the stitches. Now the other views down here, normal, image, and vectors. So, you know, for now, for this one, we're just playing with the fill stitch. So we're just going to do that. So let's get rid of that, and I just click on it to highlight it, and then I'm going to press the delete button, and we're going to play with our funny looking hat thing. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to play around with the stitches. So I'm going to click on it here and generate, and I think there's a shortcut key. I'm going to try really hard to give you guys the keyboard shortcuts as I go along. I'm a mouse driven person. I'm a mouse, and I use a tablet all the time, so I never got into the shortcuts. They are quite handy though. I will print out a guide for shortcuts for you guys, and then I'll have it up here so I can probably try to do a little bit better. But for today, this will have to do. Okay, so we've made it a bit bigger. Let's just, for the sake of it, look at it in 3D. Looking good. This stitch across the middle shows up on 3D. Most of the time does not show up in your stitch out. It's just how it works, and it has to do with the start and end points. If it really bothers you, then you can move your start and end points around here. Then it won't show as much, but really it's not going to stitch out as dramatic as it shows here. So 3D looks good. Let's go to our density map. That all looks good, and you can see that line again. It is a little more dense, but it's nothing major. X-ray, fine. So let's go back to our normal view. So we understand now fill stitches, they're meant to cover a large area. They're flat, they're kind of boring. However, they're awesome because once you do a fill stitch, you can do so many different things with it. So let's start a new one, and we'll check out the different things you can go with it. So I'm going to click on it, highlight it, press delete. Let's go down to our fill stitch. Let's place some points. Maybe I'll see if I can make it a little prettier this time. Nope, it's not going to be. So that's okay. Last one, it's a closed object, so you need to close it up. How about we put some curves in it? So I'm just left clicking and pulling, let go. Left click, pull, let go. And remember, you can move them up and down and all around, so you can really come up with some interesting shapes. And in the next video, we're going to put a backdrop, and we're going to work with the fill stitch so we can see how we can go around and do stitch placements. Okay, so we've got that. Let's go over here to the right. So let's talk about filling the fill stitch. Lots of different things you can do, and if you can create a fill stitch, you can create a fancy fill stitch and add a little bit of interest to it. User defined. We are going to set up our own fill stitches. We're going to do that on a later video because it's going to take a whole video to do it. And we're also going to do motif stitches, which is awesome. So let's click on that. Whoops. Click on plain fill. I don't know what I did there. So fill 3, you can put that in. Maybe it might be easier that we can see it with generating the stitches. So let's do that in a minute. Sorry about that. Let's talk about up here what we have going on. If you change your mind and you don't want anything, you can click on cancel. This will finish the object. This will generate the object. This is your loving undo, which is delightful. This will insert a node. This will subtract a node. So these are nodes right here. These are your nodes. And generally, the rule is with nodes, the least amount of nodes, the better. So let me show you why. Okay, this curve, look how it curves, and it's lovely, right? Absolutely lovely. It's nice and it's smooth and it goes along, and it only has 1, 2, 3 nodes. So let me show you the alternative. So let's left click on that again. And if you were doing, we're going to have to pretend there's a line there. If you were doing it and you just click along and you're trying to follow along, and remember it has to be closed, so we need to bring it back. Do you see the difference? I know I just did it really quickly, but it's really hard to make a smooth curve if you have that many nodes. So I'm just clicking on it and I'm clicking the minus, and you see already how it's straightening out. It's getting kind of curvy there because we had so many, but that's okay. Now look, we're back to our 1, 2, 3, and look at how smooth that is. So try, as you're plotting out your designs, to do the least amount of nodes possible. Obviously on a big part there's going to be a lot of nodes, but instead of doing 10, you do 3, and it looks a lot better, and your finished embroidery is going to look way, 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 way better. So let's move this guy, and we're going to subtract right there. This right here, 2 line and 2 curve. We don't have curve because it is curve. It's right there, but it's grayed out. If you want to take this and make it with no curved parts, that's what you'd click on. I happen to like it. A quick thing, if you want to close the edges, you can click on this. It didn't work for that one, but it just moved the last point. So if you placed another point and you did close edges, then it would work. This is just not the greatest example. However, you can get the idea of it. So let's subtract that. So I tend to not use it. I tend to place my points around, but it's still, if you can find a good way to use it, then absolutely use it. So let's look up here. People tend to forget about these ones all the time. There's quite a few other things in here, but let's talk about these. So reverse node order, what that's going to do is change your start point around. So start and end point, it just kind of changed it around. We're going to leave that for now. So what about this one? Duplicate a mirror. Duplicate what? Well, let's try. Look at that. So if you wanted to make a symmetrical design, you don't have to plot that out and try to make it exactly the same. You just duplicate your line, and it can be open. Let's remember I had that open because we haven't generated stitches yet. I'm still working on it, and it can be open. Now when I duplicated and mirrored, it's now closed and we can do it. But isn't that clever? You can make awesome, fill stitch designs and use these 3, and it's amazing what you can do with it. But for now, let's just go back and undo that. Let's try the other one. Duplicate and mirror horizontally. What's that going to do? Well, let's just click and find out. It did it this way. So it duplicated it and it mirrored it horizontally. So horizon, vertical. So that way. Absolutely awesome. Again, for making fancy designs and stuff you want that are symmetrical. Excellent. And what's this one? This is duplicate and mirror vertically. Again, awesome. Now it's different than this one because it duplicated it and then mirrored it this way. So horizontally is that way. This one is this way, and it's a mirror, so it doesn't quite match up. You can make it match up real easy. But again, this is not the greatest example. If you were to do, say, half of a leaf, so you can cut down your digitizing by half if you remember to use these guys. So say we have a picture of a leaf behind us, and it's going to save you a lot of time if you digitize it. Well, why don't we just kind of pretend to do it? Let's go minus, minus, and we're just kind of left. How about we just start again because we need to keep going over it. So fill stitch, tool, click down. So we're going to do, like a holly leaf or something. And I would just plot it out like this. It almost looks like a sideways Christmas tree, but you get the idea. So instead of going here, 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 doing all that, how many points I did, why don't you just click like that? And look, it's absolutely perfect. I should have done one more click here to make it thick at the bottom. It's absolutely perfect. It's exactly the same as the above, and you could make a whole bunch of things really simple like that. Let's try the other one. We know it's going to go that way. It's going to mirror it and place it horizontally. Oh, it went that way because that was, sorry, that's where my last stitch was. Even that's pretty cool. Then you could mirror the whole thing if you wanted. I mean, it's not perfect because I didn't design it perfectly. How about this one? Duplicate and mirror vertically. It's exactly the same. I prefer this one, duplicate and mirror, because it's kind of simple. But how's that for easy? So that's going to, right there, those 3 buttons are going to save you half of your digitizing. And then you can click here and it's going to close. Did you see that move? Let me do that again. So I'm looking here. Let's zoom in. And if you zoom right in and you can see the nodes. Now remember, we have to have, it's a fill stitch. So we have to have a closed object. So this isn't closed. It's crossed over, and you may think it's closed because they're crossed there, but it isn't. So what we need to do is click on the close edges, and it moved everything down. Now we can zoom out. I'm just doing it with my mouse, and it did it perfectly. So I really think that is a great shortcut. I think probably most people miss that. I really do think it's awesome for your digitizing. And when I digitize, I love perfection. I just absolutely love perfection. And placing half the nodes and duplicating it and they're exactly the same, that just thrills me. I may be a nerd, I don't know, but I think it's awesome and everybody should use it. Now, let's go back in here and talk about the different things. So plain fill, we're going to change that because it's kind of a sideways tree. I'm not really sure what it is, but why don't we put something, I like the randoms. Those are kind of cool. Waves. Oh, we can do cust lines. Now, nothing happened, right? But I'm going to show you. Now, down here is the underlay. So there's 3 types of underlay that you can put on. If you are, it depends what you're stitching it on. It also depends on how big this is. If it's a great big huge thing, you need the underlay. The underlay makes a wonderful base for your embroidery. So what it does is it'll go, edge will go just inside the edge, and it's a really good one because when it puts the cover stitches on, the fill stitches, it makes it so it's a nice straight edge when you stitch it out. So edge is great. Zigzag one is, it just kind of fills it in kind of in this kind of a zigzag pattern, however it does it. And that gives a solid base for all of these inside stitches. So you won't have any, the idea is generally you won't have any material showing through. If it has a little bit of a pile on it, it'll mat it down a little bit. You still may have to use, cover backing on it, but just in general, we're saying it's going to flatten everything down and prepare for your cover stitches, and it makes a big difference. You don't always have to use it, but it is generally a good idea. Now you can change the edge, obviously just goes around the edge. You can't really change a whole lot there. Zigzag 1, zigzag 2. If you look here, they have them opposite. Plus 50 degrees, minus 50 degrees. So you could change that if you need to. Generally, I leave it alone, but there are times where you need to change the underlay angle of it. Try to keep them so it looks good. But you can mess around with it if you want. So why don't we generate this? Now we've put on a cust line, and let's see. I always have to click it twice. Okay, so again, we have the problem. We've generated the stitches, but it doesn't really look like much. And the reason for that is that we need to see these fancy stitches in 3D mode. However, I can tell if you look here, there's some light white, I guess they're almost. That's going to show the penetration points. But let's look here. See, now this was wrong because this was too thin for a fill stitch. So I don't like that. I do like my wonky diamonds. It's a bit small for the design. You can see it didn't quite manage it in the middle, so that design doesn't look the greatest. But why don't we go in and fix our node. So let's go up here, and this is a thing that you use all the time. It's second from the top, and it's edit node mode. And I see the problem right here. We have a little crossover, and that's why the pattern didn't work very well. So let's just make it kind of weird but wider. So how about something like that? Because remember, we are kind of working a little bit smaller. So that's how you would fix that, just a quick fix. And if the lines cross over, it's not going to like it. So go in and check your nodes. That looks a little bit better. It might be because it's still small. Let's try that. So I just pulled on it, left click, drag, and we need to generate, and we're already in the mode. That looks much better, much better. So what if you don't like this and we fixed the problem? That would be a problem with just about any stitch. What if you want to play around with, the type of cover stitches? I'm sure the underlay is great. So let's go. Now I right clicked, and you go right here to parameters. So let's go to parameters, and you have all the stuff and a little bit more that we saw when we were creating our fill stitch. So let's go down here to plain fill, and let's try another one. Now once you create it, this is a great way to play around, and there's so many different stitches that you can find the right one. So click, and you don't have to get out of this, you just click apply, and you can see right away your changes. See, I like that one too. The design is kind of weird. Maybe it's fish. I decided maybe it's fish. How about fill 5, apply. See, that one's kind of nice. It's kind of a random stitch. Let's try something. Pavement. Apply. Oh, I like that one. See, now this is big enough for it to work. Now, keep in mind, you can't do, it's grayed out a little bit. You can't do anything on your screen. A lot of people get frustrated at this point. You can't make any more changes. You can play around with the stitches as it applies to right here, but you can't do anything more, and that's simply because your parameters is up. To get out of it, you click generate stitches, it'll go out, and then you can move stuff around. So don't get frustrated at that part. You just one thing at a time. How about circles? Apply. See, I like that one too. And that is exactly what it'll look like when it stitches out, and it's quite nice. So let's see, there's quite a few. So I would suggest playing around. Oh, I just saw one that I really like. Whoops, I interrupt myself all the time. Let's click apply. Yeah, see, I love that one. Basket weave or bricks. You can create a simple basket and put this on it, and it looks like you've put in hours of work on it. Hours and hours and hours. And you didn't. It's just a click of a button and it's already done. So it really does add interest to your base stitches. Now I wouldn't put everything in fancy stitches, but a couple things on a project, it really looks fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So we're going to do a whole video on parameters and the different parameters that you are, but you can instantly change because we have this object plotted out. You can instantly change to a motif stitch. So let's try that just so you can see. It's a bit small. We can play around with them, but these are the similar to the fill stitches, except for there's no filled in background. And I think that looks absolutely fantastic. And that could be, it almost looks like a ribbon or something like that. So you don't have to, once you digitize your fill object, you don't have to stick with fill stitches. You can just as easily switch over to the motif stitches. Bear in mind, again, if you're using the fancy stitches, your objects they can't be small. They need to be medium to large. I don't know what large would be, filling up the hoop, I guess. Otherwise, they don't have a chance to form the design. See, look how great that is. So you could, for this brick one, I just name off what I see in easy design. If you did it in a square, if you were, say you were digitizing bricks, doing each brick separately, no way. Doing each brick and then doing an outline, no way. All you'd have to do is copy and paste this, make it a solid fill, make this black, and you have all of this design work So easily done. So I encourage everyone to seriously play with their fill stitches. Fill stitches are one of the base stitches for every embroidery design. So mastering the fill stitch and the plotting of the stitches for fill stitches is the start to it. Look at that. That is, they call it meanders, but it's a stipple stitch. Super easy if you're doing, yep, see, it's perfect. So you could create a circle, fill it with stipple stitches, and you have a quilt pattern just like that. You didn't have to do anything more. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So there's quite a few more things. Let's do a few more things. Oh, I didn't want that. So should we undo? No, let's just do it again. So I'm highlighting it. It was already highlighted. I'm going delete. Let's go back to normal view. Let's do one of these. Now this time we're going to do a shape, because shapes are also filled objects. So it's still using the fill. You can use other stitches, but using the fill stitch. Now, a lot of people have a hard time. They get very frustrated with this. I clicked on fill, the fill stitch tool. I clicked on it and I want to go to shape, and they're all grayed out. Okay, they're all grayed out, and people go, I can't do it. I can't do it. All you have to do is place one point down and then go. Embird would like it in this order. Thank you very much. You can't just pick the tool and it knows you have to put one point, your start point down, then you can pick your shape. And we have quite a few to choose from, and you have a library, and you can also make your own shapes. So if you use something a lot, if you use a certain I don't know, like a flower or something, if you use it a lot, you can add it to your library. We'll do that in another video too, because it's brilliant. But for now, let's use what Embird gives us. So let's make a rounded rectangle. Let's do a rectangle first. Now I'm going to click there, and I'm left clicking. See how that turned color in there? And I'm dragging, and it's going to pull out this wonderful rectangle. And you can do it up, down, you could do it over here. That is my start point though. So that is a very, very fast way to make a perfect rectangle. So let's see, let's do our size. We're working pretty small because we're zoomed in. So this is 2 by 1/2, so still pretty small. Now, this is another place where everyone gets confused, because you really can't do anything. You can't generate the stitches. People think, okay, I've done it. I want to do it right now, but the only thing left is cancel. What you need to do is at this point, and write this down and remember it, after you pull out your shape, you need to right click, and there's your option, 2 elements. So what it means is it's going to put your nodes on. It's going to put your nodes on. And this is the direction arrow, by the way. So now once you have your nodes on, you can generate, and what do you think is going to happen? It's going to fill it just like that and look great. I think we should maybe change to another color. Somebody complained about the red. I don't know. If I switch to black, you can still see it on black. It's not much better. So that's how you do an object. Now, once it's done and it has all of its nodes, you can still go in and manipulate it. If you say, well, I want it shorter, just make it shorter. Everything else stays in place. You can pull out the sides. You can make it generally bigger and keep it into perspective like that. You can do top, bottom, sides. It's absolutely fantastic. It is a super way of making perfect design. So I'm going to delete that. Let's do another one so we can go over it. You pick your fill tool, you click down a point, then you click on your shape menu. Let's do a star. You left click, hold, and you're dragging. Now look, I dragged down, so it's going to make it longer, and then this way it's going to make it wider. And you just make it how you think looks good and let go. And then again, there's nothing you can do except for right click, 2 elements. and then you can manipulate any of the nodes that you want. You can add nodes. You can do absolutely everything that we could before. Now it's closed, so it's not going to do that. We can change the fill as normal. Everything is normal. It just gives you this wonderful baseline for it. I'm going to leave, what size are we at? Yeah, I'm going to leave everything. Let's generate and let's look at our star. Oh, I always have to click it twice. Let's look at our star now. It looks a little bit off, so I'm going to pull it out. Oh, that doesn't look any better now, does it? There we go. Looking good. Absolutely looking good. Let's check it in. Wait, we have to generate. Then once you see that, then you can check it in 3D. And I put a fancy stitch on that, and it actually doesn't look too bad. Let's make it a little bit bigger and generate the stitches so we can see. Even better. Patrick Star right there. Put a couple little eyeballs on it. There you go. So that looks good. Let's look in the density map. Now these are all showing, obviously the fancy stitches are a little more dense because it's making more movements. It's dense here, then it's flat here, and it's dense here. So if you see something like this, it's okay. It's programmed to do it okay. And it's fine for that. Oh, I moved it, so now I have to generate it. So that's fine. Let's look at the X-ray, and it just shows you everywhere that it's going. And that looks great. Let's go back to normal. You can see here where the density parts are. Let's see if we can zoom in. Can you see the white? It's really hard to see. I'll try to zoom in anymore. But that's making your design. So if you look at it about here, you can really see the design, how it's going, and that's where the density is. So we could move that around if we wanted, but I kind of like it just the way it is. Let's look at it in 3D. Awesome. Again, if we want to play around with it, which you should all the time, parameters, bricks, how bricks on a star. Yeah, cool. I like it. Cells. See, that's how to make a really cool star. So we're going to generate the stitches. Now that we have our star out, let's talk a little bit about guidelines. We have our rulers top and to the left. And if you notice my cursor, when I go up into the ruler, it turns into a cross. If you left click and hold, look, you bring down this little guideline. So if you're trying to set up something, you can do this. If you wanted to do another, okay, you can duplicate and just one way of setting it up. If you need guidelines, if that's going to help you, then you can left click, drag, and you can set up squares or something to place them in. Guidelines are quite handy. I use them a lot for setting up writing. If I'm making, say, a battle patch or something, and the writing, I want it the same on this side as on the other, I will set up guidelines, one up, one down, and I'll place the lettering right there. It's super handy, and it's a nice trick to keep everything awesome and straight and looking good, and use your guidelines as much as possible. You can, let's see, if we take a guideline and we put it right in the middle, this is a neat trick, and you right click, slice selected, so you have to have it, my bad, just a little brain moment, you have to have it selected, obviously. Slice selected objects, and you can slice it. How's that for a lovely shortcut? It kind of threw me for a minute, and I have it a little bit off, but that is a really fast way of dividing it. Say you wanted to put, even make, it's the wrong way around, but put some lettering in here and you wanted it split really quickly, that is how you do it. Monogrammers love this split by guideline. You can do it for just about anything. That is just a really nice little quick tip that is so enjoyable. And all these things that I've shown you today should make your digitizing with fill stitches easier, less frustration. There's a lot more things we can do. Those are the basics of the fill stitch. So one of our videos, we're going to do transform and convert and work our way through everything. And you can get all the details. You can convert just quickly. You can convert once you have your fill stitch plotted out, which is very easy to do. You can create column from your fill stitch, which we won't do because our star's kind of big. You can auto outline it, so create outline, and it's going to take, you can see it. You see the difference between that one and that one? So there's a lot. These transform and convert are my favorite things to use in Embird because you can do so many things. Fill to opening, fill to somato, transform. Let's look at all these. You can snap, you can create a connection. That's going to be a whole video. And that one's dedicated to Suzanne, who's having trouble creating connections and making connections. Look at all these quick things. Flip it, flip it. You want to make sure that's on, by the way. Transformation window, that's a whole other story. I'm going to show you that briefly. Center it. These are the ones I use all the time. Bring to center, center vertically, center horizontally. They speak for themselves. What else? Expand objects. I don't use these too often, but they are really handy. If you have a lot of nodes, remember at the beginning of the video, we were talking about nodes. If you have a lot of nodes and you go, oh my, what have I done? You can reduce the nodes number, but it's really going to change the shape of what you were doing. So you can try it, and if you don't like it, you can always undo it. Auto outliner, that is delightful. That is absolutely delightful. Cornering, that puts it, you can see by the picture here, you can set it up and auto repeat. I am going to do another video just on these transformations and the different things you can do with them. That just gives you a quick overview of what you can do. So hopefully this has helped everybody out quite a bit. I think I've covered everything. You can, everything that you can do. Oh, I just pulled that off. That's okay. That's my outline. Now you can see that it's actually there. Do you want to look at it in 3D? Oh yeah, because I don't have anything generated. Let's generate everything. Let's look at it in 3D. Oh, I know, there is one more thing that I want to show you guys. Stitch Simulator. When you're working on a design and you have a whole bunch of things here. See, now we have 3, and I'm going to change one of them to maybe blue or something so you can see the differences. Make sure every once in a while, or at least at the end of your digitizing, you go to the Stitch Simulator. It will save you time at your machine. I always do it. And it's going to obviously simulate what your machine is going to do. So you can see mistakes, you can see connections that don't actually connect, you can see that it's in the wrong order and it's stitching over. It just points everything out to you. Too many color changes, because I could have put this black over here, but we weren't really working on it. You can see it in 3D. So that's absolutely awesome. You can watch it stitch out in 3D and you can see where it stops. How about we slow it down? See how slow you can go? And you can see that the machine is going to do a stitch over, over, over. It's amazing. So you can really fast, really slow. You can have it pause on any trims. You can or jump stitches. You can pause on a jump stitch inside an object if you happen to have that. That you'll need to correct that. Pause on color change, so the whole simulator will stop so you can see how many color changes you have a little more clearly. Pause on backward path, we are going to talk about that one. Pause on connection, if there's a connection and you want it to stop there. Well, it finished on me while I was still going through everything. Let's do it again here. All right, so I can stop it. I meant to pause it. So let's try that again. Sim. There's the pause button. Connections and pause on shade change. If you ever do Somato stuff, there's a whole lot of colors in it. So you can go through, you can look at it different ways. I highly encourage anybody and everybody to do a stitch simulator for any of their designs that they create. It's just like double checking your work before you send it to the machine. And if you can find one or two mistakes that you just go back, you fix, do it again. Once you get a clean stitch simulator, then stitch it out. Think about how much time you're going to save. Because if you stitch out the whole design on your machine and then you look at it and go, wow, that's wrong and that's wrong, you have to go back in, you have to fix everything, and then you have to stitch it out again and hope you didn't miss anything. So everybody should do it. Everybody, I do it every time and make sure things are stitching out how I want. So for now, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Please look forward to quite a few more movies where we're going to really get into how to use this program and how to get yourself digitizing and how to do things properly. But for now, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and keep working, keep playing, and happy digitizing everyone.